Time is up. The gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Tipton, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director, thank you for being here. Appreciate the effort that you've made in the 86 days, I think he's commented, that you've been in. I come from a rural district, and one of the most important things is to be able to grow jobs and to be able to create opportunities. And one of the big issues that we face continues to be, and we've had the concern in this committee as well, is going to be on access to capital. I do co-chair the Small Business Caucus here on the House side. We've had a variety of different meetings and thought there were some interesting statistics that came out. The Chamber of Commerce just reported in the fall of last year that lending to small businesses, which are the businesses that make up my district, is down 13% since 2008. And on top of that, a recent report came from the Senate and it found that women account for just 16% of the conventional small business loans and receive only 4% of all commercial loan dollars. So, Director, is this an issue that's come to your attention during your limited tenure at the CFPB? And do you think that this is part of an issue that could possibly be addressed in terms of some of the regulatory burden that you mentioned?
Yes, in terms of small business lending, we have, when it comes to the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, and we have some authority there to look at discrimination in small business lending, which we have done in our supervisory and enforcement work. And we also have responsibility under Section 1071 to enter into a rulemaking to try to assess what is happening in the small business lending space.
Great, and I appreciate that and would encourage you to go ahead and formalize that rule to be able to get that data. 7 out of 10 jobs in the country are created by small businesses. A lot of them are out in the rural areas, and and I think that that's going to be important for us to be able to keep the economy moving. You've had a few comments that you've been making here that I'd like you to maybe follow up and expand on a little bit. Your predecessors had opposing views when it came to the use of enforcement actions and determining policy. Could you expand on that maybe just a little bit more? Would you share those thoughts on regulations versus enforcement?
I am certainly committed to having clarity in the rules that entities that are seeking to comply can rely upon, and I do think that regulatory tool that Congress gave the Bureau is an important one in terms of setting out what those rules are. Certainly the supervisory and exam process that we have is also, again, geared to that. I am looking at all of the tools that the Bureau has and trying to assess how best to utilize them and apply them in terms of a rubric perhaps of prevention of harm and thinking about how that can really assist in thinking about the way that we carry out our mission. When it comes to enforcement specifically, it is absolutely still a critical tool that we use because we know there are entities that have no intention of trying to comply. They are not going to be the ones that are going to self-report what they have found or mistakes that have been made. They're not going to be in a productive relationship with their regulator. They're going to be thwarting, and they're going to be engaged in unfair practices vis-a-vis consumers, and that's where the enforcement tool really is most effective, and where we need to focus it.
So would we be in agreement? You don't enforce first, then regulate. You stay within the boundaries of congressional intent and the law. And would you make any recommendations on, is there something that Congress should actually be doing to be able to help give you clarity of those boundaries? Because this is a unbridled agency that it seems when we looked at Director Cordray and the enforcements that he was putting into place that extended, in the opinion of many, far beyond some authorities. Is there something that we should be doing legislatively to be able to put those guardrails in place to give you greater clarity?
The law is certainly my guidepost in the activities that I will undertake and the approach I'm taking to the position of director. And I do leave to Congress consideration of what other things that should be enacted. I encourage, as I mentioned earlier, in continued transparency and accountability of the agency.
And just a few seconds left. You didn't get really a chance to answer on the fair lending in regards to an investigative process. I assume you don't individually do that. Do you want to lay out real quickly what that process is for fair lending?
Yes, it's similar to all the other enforcement actions. The enforcement attorneys are the ones who open investigations, and they certainly carry that through research stages. And others, it takes many months and years to build a case. For those who are litigators, they know that. Certainly, it becomes public at the time of actually filing the case or having a consent order in place.
The gentleman's time
Thank
has
you.
expired.
Yield back.